Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. You're tuned in to LA Talk Live, where we're more than just talk.
Hi, and welcome to the Book Beat. I'm Jean-Noel Bassior, and we have a great show planned for you today. Remember, this is the show where we feature authors talking about their latest books and guest experts in the world of writing and publishing, because what we want you to do is find a good book to read this week. And if you can't find one, maybe start thinking about writing one yourself. So today we have a legendary figure in the world of self-healing with us, Dr. Bernie Siegel. And he wrote the classic Love, Medicine, and Miracles. And we've been waiting for his follow-up to that, and he's done it. His new book is called The Art of Healing, Uncovering Your Inner Wisdom and Potential for Self-Healing. And later on, we're going to be joined by Sam Dawson, and she is the author of The Broad Appeal, Wit and Wisdom from Women ages 60 to 90. And yes, I think that is a double entendre in the title. So, Dr. Siegel, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Thank you so much for doing this. I want to give you a brief intro. You know, you and I spoke about 10 years ago when I was doing a piece for First for Women. And later...
Yes, that's something, I'm always trying to empower women.
Yes.
In the sense that they live longer than men with the same cancers and so forth, but often they're living as mama, the wife, the housekeeper, and I always want them to live their own authentic lives.
Yes, that's wonderful, and I know you're known for that wonderful humanistic approach. That's really what Dr. Siegel is known for, folks. Humanizing the medical establishment's approach to patients and empowering them to induce their own healing. And in fact, that was the story that we worked on. There were 3 women who had healed themselves of cancer, pretty much using self-healing techniques.
Yeah.
And your first book, Love, Medicine, and Miracles, is still wildly popular. You've got this new book now that offers hands-on, patient-proven techniques that can create miracles. And I want to tell you, the producer of this show, Susan Levin, who was a close friend of mine, passed away 3 days ago. And she had your book on her desk, unopened, because by the time she got it, she was already in a health crisis. And in a sense, the momentum was kind of underway. And I think it was past the time where she could really do the wonderful things that we're going to talk about that you describe in your book. So, we're conditioned, to beat the illness, stay alive. But if we can't, is death a failure?
No. I mean, death, I would say, is the final treatment. When you leave your body, you're perfect again. And I mean that literally. You don't have a body. You have your consciousness. You can see. You can think. I mean, I had a near-death experience at age 4, choking on a toy. I know how angry I was when I didn't die. And so, in a sense, I always say death is a great teacher about life. I mean, if you accept the fact that we are mortal, you enjoy the time you have here. But when you get tired of your body, I mean, literally, my father said to my mother, I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
She thought he needed help out of bed. I said, Mom, he's talking about his body.
Yeah.
He doesn't enjoy being in it anymore. So she gave him permission. And he had no trouble dying, surrounded by loved ones, laughing, literally, because the stories my mother was telling.
Wow.
So, death, see, you have to also understand your body does not see death the way you do. Your body doesn't think and have emotions. Your mind does. So Monday morning, we have more heart attacks, strokes, suicides, and illnesses. Why? Because your body thinks it's doing you a favor. You hate your job, you hate your life, you hate the traffic. Okay, well, get you the hell out of here.
Yeah, let's not do this anymore.
So, so that all the emotions, and this is not, because years ago doctors would say to me, you're blaming your patients, you're asking them what's going on in their life, and that's their fault, they got sick. I said, I'm not blaming them, I'm asking them what could make them vulnerable.
Right.
If you lose a loved one, if you are lonely, I mean, all these things, you can reverse it literally. We have statistics on the value of pets, of laughter. All these things have become scientific now because, again, they're changing your body chemistry. And I always say, if I had to summarize everything, I would say love your life and love your body. Then it will do everything it can to keep you here. I mean, there's an article in our paper, and one of my questions in my book, do you want to live to be 100, in my first book. Why did I ask that? I wanted to know people's attitude, you see. And the article by a physician was about, will we live to be 120, and that most people don't want to because they're afraid. Because the people who would say, no, I don't want to live to be 100, I'll be disabled, I'll be in a nursing home, and then there are others who have that attitude, yeah, I want to live to be 100, because they see life in a different way.
Right,
and it affects our health and our ability to do things.
Yeah,
so,
and I like what you said. You've got a quote, which I love, when when you get tired of your body, death is your next therapy.
Yeah. I mean, this book has 70 drawings, and I always think of one woman who had her arm amputated like 30 years before she drew a picture, and she put both arms back on again. Now, that could be psychological, I can handle things, but I knew she was saying, I'm going to be perfect again, and she died shortly after doing that.
Right.
With others, you'll see purple kites, balloons, spiritual color, purple, heading up in the sky.
Yeah.
And one, I can't remember if it's in the book or not, where the person with cancer, a woman with breast cancer, drew her husband flying a kite that was purple up in the sky.
I'm looking for it here. I'm holding up the book so we can see some of the wonderful.
Oh, all right.
Yes.
But anyway, I said to her, it looks like you're ready to go, but he can't let go. So we asked him to come in, and he said, yes, my wife's a nurse. She makes the meals, pays the bills, takes care of the house. I mean, he went on and on. He said, if she dies, I'm dead. I don't know how to do anything. So she said, all right, I won't die. I'll train you. And maybe it was 6 months later. 6 months later, he said, honey, I cut the string. If you need to go, it's okay.
Oh.
And she said, fine, I'll die Thursday at 2 o'clock when the kids get here from California. And, again, it's such a different relationship. And another thing I often ask people is, when did the person die and who was with them? Because most deaths occur in the hospital in the middle of the night. The doctor isn't there to interfere, and your family isn't there that make you feel guilty.
Right.
I mean, kids and mothers will do this a lot. They will wait till the parents leave or the children leave and then die.
Right.
And that's not about guilt. I mean, they think they're doing you a favor.
They do that. That's exactly what my friend Susan did as well. And I want to talk about, to give people a background who are not familiar with the book, let's talk about what the book is. It's pictures that you had patients draw, right?
Right.
And what kind of...
I call it making the invisible visible. I mean, we're not told, and I mean this literally in our training as doctors, that Carl Jung interpreted a dream and diagnosed a brain tumor. And I drew a picture many years ago for Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and couldn't believe how much she knew about my life from this.
Yeah, she challenged you, didn't she?
Yeah, the scene I made up. It didn't mean anything to me, and here she is asking me questions about my life. So I started getting my patients to draw pictures. And the thing that most therapists don't see is anatomy. In other words, as a doctor, I'm trained. I know anatomy. I can see it in the picture, even though it may be a tree or a stream or sails on a boat. I mean, when I look at it, it's like, wow, that's a part of the body. But psychotherapists don't know anatomy, so they're seeing it in a different context. And I began to realize I was getting information and thinking I was discovering incredible things, only to learn everybody knew about it. It's just I was never taught about it. And I continued to use these drawings and now share them. I mean, there's more in the book than just drawings.
Right,
it's all the things I've learned, too.
Right.
But
what was
something
that was a surprise to you, though, that let's just to fill in for people. I think you said that in these pictures, sometimes they told what was going on in the body, right? and
Absolutely.
yeah, could you sort of give us an example of something like that?
Well, two things in two ways. One, it tells us what's affecting our bodies from our life. Because there's a quote from Alice Miller that starts with our childhood is stored up in our body. Our whole life is stored in our body. So in the book, there's a drawing by a reporter. I asked her to draw a picture because I knew she was assigned an interview and didn't think much of what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And her head is good size, which, talks about her being an intellectual. But second, she put a clock behind her in the picture with one hand pointed at 12. And I thought, I want to shake her up. I'm not going to ask her why is 12 important. And I just said to her, what happened when you were 12 years old? I don't like deadlines. I said, there's one hand on the clock. And then she burst into tears and talked to me about abuse at age 12. A picture that isn't in the book.
It's not in the book because there is a picture here.
No, that picture is in the book.
Yes, I'm holding it up here.
But another one I was going to mention that isn't in the book was sent to me by a doctor recently in an email. He said, we have a woman with pelvic problems. Nobody seems to be able to help her. We can't get them to resolve. I said, tell her to draw a picture and send it to me. She sent a broken heart, like a Valentine heart, cracked open, 21 drops of blood. I said, ask her what happened when she was 21. And then I got a full page about sexual abuse that she had experienced that year. And so now they can get her to understand what she's storing in her body that needs to be dealt with. And it's more than just giving her a pill. It's what has gone on in your life. What have you hidden? What have you buried inside of yourself? And so, again, all these things,
right?
Can be brought forth, and it's not me criticizing or guessing. It's the statement the patient made, so it really has an impact. And it's not just patients. It's medical students who say, I don't know what specialty to choose. I say, draw each one, and we'll look at it. So anytime, or family pictures, your home and family. I mean, you can learn about all these things from the symbols and know what needs to be done to improve the situation or what's happening.
Yeah, well, it gives us the power. It does
right.
return the power to us. And I know that sometimes, as I think you're saying, people have a reaction to that and sort of accuse you of, it's like, well, what, me? Take responsibility for my illness or what's going on? But I know, that you're, obviously, this is returning the power to, the patient, right?
I'm trying to get people to understand their potential. But truly, if you have not grown up with love, it's rare for people to show up at a support group or draw a picture or read a book because they'll do it wrong. Say, I'm not an artist. I don't have time for books. I mean, what they've been hypnotized by are authority figures who tell them they're a failure, they're never going to amount to anything, and they grow up with that. So people need to love themselves, respect themselves, and look at it as, what is my potential? See, the word I use, even though it's in books, Love, Medicine, Miracles, and so forth, and before this book, we have a book of miracles, incredible things that happen to people. But they happen when you choose life. They're self-induced. That's a term Solzhenitsyn used in his book Cancer Ward. Self-induced healing as a rainbow-colored butterfly. And you get your life in order. You create harmony. The butterfly is a symbol of transformation. So, these are not accidents when they happen. And, again, but people could say, well, if I can't heal, then, I didn't love enough, I did it wrong. It's not about that. It's about what is your potential? What are we capable of? And give it a try. Don't make yourself into a statistic and die on schedule. I mean, I have letters I always carry this one with me and read it when I'm lecturing. The doctor told me I had 2 months to live. This time I felt so bad, I thought he's right. So I bought a dog, I put it in a backyard wildlife habitat, I laughed more, I took some vitamins, and the letter goes on and ends with, and I didn't die, and now I'm so busy I'm killing myself. Help, where do I go from here?
Yeah.
I told her to take a nap. Or another gentleman, he said to me, I'm going out to Colorado to die in the mountains. It's beautiful there. I said to the family, call me when he dies. I'll come to the funeral. A year goes by, no phone call. I'm upset that they didn't acknowledge that I cared about this man. And I called up. Guess who answers the phone? The man I thought was dead. And he said, "Well, it was so beautiful here, I forgot to die." Now, again, those are not coincidences, if you know what I mean.
Right.
But there are people in Colorado. See, what I laugh about is you tell that story in Colorado, and they say, "Why did it help him coming here?" And I say, maybe you need to be in Florida.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
So
change of scene.
Yeah, it's what was right for that person.
Right.
And then the message your body gets: I'm loving my life. I'm loving living here. Right. Okay. So one gentleman I know in Florida, a millionaire, took off his tie. He canceled the dress code at work, bought a house on the ocean so he could sit and meditate with my tapes and watch the ocean. And instead of dying in 2 months, he lived 5.5 years and really taught the hospital something. They realized this is not an accident. You know, it's not luck or a spontaneous remission. It's what he's done with his life. So they made changes in the hospital to help other patients do the kinds of things he did.
Yeah, and I know you talk a lot about physicians not being prepared to deal with, you know, feelings, really. And I love you said at one point, I think there's a picture of a young doctor handing a tissue to a woman in a wheelchair, and you say that's what being a doctor is about.
Yeah, I asked a class of medical students to draw themselves working as a doctor. I was shocked by the pictures I got. I show the two extremes in the book. One has no human being in it. And the instructions are draw yourself working as a doctor.
Yeah, but it was just machines, right?
Yeah, computers, instruments, you know, pills, all. The other extreme was a young man kneeling in front of a lady in a wheelchair with his arm around her, handing her a tissue. See, he knows what being a doctor is. He's not touching her with his stethoscope. He's doing something for her.
Right.
All of the rest basically showed the student sitting behind a desk with their diploma on the wall behind them. No patient.
And that was being a doctor.
Right. Yeah. And that's why doctors have a problem. They don't know how to take care of people and people's experience. They're treating a disease. I mean, this was an ad I got canceled from the New England Journal of Medicine, from Sandoz Pharmaceutical Company. I was unable to cope. I went to see my physician. You know, I told him I was very depressed. What's the next line? He gave me a pill, and I feel better now. I wrote them and said, couldn't the doctor say what's going on in your life? Why are you depressed? They canceled the ad. I mean, but that's the part that drives me nuts. He's treating depression. He's not treating a person. I learned to say to people, what are you experiencing? And it's amazing. The words they use were always about their life. Failure, draining, pressure, roadblock, constriction. And there are some who say wake-up call, blessing, new beginning, you know, because of the lessons they've learned from their mortality. But
is that why you say like words can kill or cure?
Finish. Because when they say things like failure, draining, I say, what else in your life fits those words? And that helps them heal their life because they know damn well why they feel like a failure. Say what's draining them, what's causing pressure. And they thank you, and they go off to change their life.
Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to step on you there, but I wanted to kind of to ask you that point because you say that words can literally kill or cure, and that's what you mean, isn't it?
Yeah, what I love to do, one of our children did it in an art class. He took the word words and filled the canvas with it. I say to everybody, write the word words 3 or 4 times with no space between them. And you notice they become swords. And when he came in the house with it, I looked at it and was like, wow, where did this little kid, come to that? But it was like he was meant to help me because I realized that you can kill or cure with words or a scalpel. I mean, you take hope away from people, and I've seen them go home and die in a week. I mean, a man with cancer developed cataracts. His health plan said, you only have about 6 months to live. We're not spending money on cataract surgery. He went home and died in a week because if he couldn't see, he couldn't read the paper, he couldn't play with his grandchildren. It's like, what the hell's the point of living? So he curls up in bed and dies. Now, there are other people who get angry, say, at the doctors, and, then that energy comes and they don't go home and die. They get their cataracts done or, other things that happen that they do. But it's the person. And when the authority figure talks to you like that, you can kill them. I mean, I have an article on my website called Deceiving People into Health. I did a lot of children's surgery, and I realized how, the kids trusted me. I was an authority figure, and my words to them were hypnotic. I mean, a simple example, which blew my mind and woke me up to this. I would say to a child in the emergency room, you'll go to sleep when you go in the operating room. I'm thinking of anesthesia. I'm trying to reassure them that they won't have pain. The kids started falling asleep on the stretcher that we wheeled them into the operating room on. I mean, that blew my mind, that these kids, and the cute ones, would flip over, lie on their stomach, and go to sleep, and yell at me when I turned them over because they said, you told me I would sleep. I sleep on my stomach. I mean, it was amazing how literally they took my words and, boom, went to sleep.
Wow.
Yeah. So I learned to speak to people in a therapeutic way to enhance the effects. And let me, just so people understand how powerful the mind is, a radiation therapist told me he hadn't treated anybody for a month. He discovered it when they did the routine inspection on the machine. And he said, I'm feeling so terrible. I said, you don't know what you're telling me. He said, what do you mean? I'm telling you I feel awful. I said, excuse me, you are not an idiot. So if you weren't treating people, you would have known it. But the people thought they were being treated, so they had side effects of treatment and shrinking tumors. And his look on his face, he said, oh, my God, you're right. Yeah. And think about that. People's mind, they thought they were being treated, and they responded as if they were. Their body did, because of what their mind was telling the body.
But isn't it ironic that they do double-blind studies? Physicians say, well, we have to do a double-blind study because thought could influence, the physicians. If they knew what kind of pill they were taking, that would influence it. Or if the physician knew that which was the placebo and which was the real one, would influence it. But in a sense, they don't see what they're doing. That is what you're saying, really. That is the power of the mind.
What happened is, I always remember the study when Rogaine came out, the hair growing. Something like 40% of people who received Rogaine had improvement in their hair growth. 30% of the people who received the placebo had improvement. Now, that's basically the placebo figure. So when a treatment has about 30% of the people doing well, it ain't the treatment, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's the belief of the people.
Right.
And that's why you have to know that and at least study it so you know that whatever you're giving them is better than just, related to their beliefs. But let me give you an example that they started a new protocol with 4 chemotherapeutic agents that began with the letters E, P, O, and H. And they called it the EPO protocol. One of the doctors realized if you turn the letters around, it spells hope. So he started giving the HOPE protocol. And he had 3 times as many patients respond in a positive manner as the other doctors.
Wow.
I mean, another doctor out in Chicago looked at how far people had to come for a new, treatment plan that he devised. And he said the people who lived near the hospital did 1/3 as well as the people who had to come at least 15 miles to the hospital. And I see that in our support groups. I mean, I'm in Connecticut. Somebody shows up from Canada. I mean, I said, you won't die when you're supposed to. Don't worry. How do you know? You came all the way from Canada to a meeting, I mean, that is not normal behavior. So there's something in you, and how they participate. Because then you get people who are 10 minutes away and,
they don't take it seriously.
Get over there,
Yeah.
Right.
I love, of course, one of the things that you're known for is really, as we can see, just listening to you, empowering the patient, giving us the power. And so what I want you to talk about your Siegel kit.
Oh, yeah.
Because I love that.
I mean, things I've learned, because there's an immune-competent personality that's also on my website. But one is to express anger appropriately. And so I tell people, you go to the hospital, one thing you take is a water gun. A teenager taught me that, because he was in the hospital to die. I mean, nobody was fighting with that aspect, but he would close his door to be with his girlfriend or his family, and people would come in for stupid reasons. You know, it's like take your temperature, empty the wastebasket. He had a high-powered water gun, and he would drench them. And, you know, they realized, I mean, that they never took the gun away from him. Oh, yeah, over his bed it said intern shot on sight. But, you know, they knew it was his way of expressing himself without hurting anybody. And when he died, the mother gave the gun to the nurses who would give it to other kids. They'd say, hey, if anybody hurts you, you know, give them, you know, squirt them. And it would empower the kids, and they'd put up with things. The other was a noisemaker, and this isn't funny. I mean, it's real, because I know several people would be dead today if they didn't have roommates.
Yes.
You know, the joke is, you want an hour of uninterrupted silence, push the call button. And then,
exactly.
Nobody shows up. But, you know, when somebody is choking and pushes the call button and nobody shows up, you need a noisemaker. You need a way of making a racket to get attention and get help. And the magic marker was, if you go into the operating room, whether it's you or your family, write, cut here, not this one stupid.
Yeah.
You know, or write tonsils on your kid's forehead, or eye surgery.
Yeah.
Because I know children who had the opposite surgery.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how the doctor could not know their own patient, but to take out the tonsils of some child who's there for eye surgery,
Yeah.
you know, or to have the wrong knee operated on in an adult.
It's the left
And one more
kidney, not
thing
the right one.
that I add, I don't think it was in the book, was vital signs, that bring some blank papers with you. So if you do shut the door, put a note up, says, don't disturb, meditating, taking a nap, talking to my family, so that people know that the door is shut for a reason, and don't barge in and interrupt you.
Right, right. And let's just in the couple minutes we have left, just if someone gets this book and they have been diagnosed with, you know, something that's quote serious unquote,
Right.
if they read the book, like, is this once, let's say they start to get possibly to the cause, the deep emotional cause of the illness, then are you recommending that to go ahead with traditional or alternative, a combination?
Well, again, that's part of why I use the drawings.
Yeah.
Before people do use a treatment, or to help them decide, I say draw yourself. Well, it could be all things. Yourself, your treatment, your immune system, eliminating the illness, you see. So you have the four components: yourself, your disease, your treatments, and your immune system. And then we look at it to help empower you. But you see, there are people who draw the devil giving them poison. If they don't change that concept, they're in for big trouble. And others will draw the operating room filled with love and God, and some of those pictures are there. And somebody else draws the operating room as an empty black box. So if they say, but I want to go ahead with it, then we use guided imagery and visualization. So you imagine, you picture going in, having surgery, doing beautifully, going home, everything's fine. Then a week later, they draw a beautiful picture. And believe me, it changes how much pain you have, side effects, everything else, you see. When somebody draws a bone marrow transplant and she's sitting in God's hand with the doctor embracing her and the family outside the window, and it's just a gorgeous picture, and somebody else draws themselves looking like a skeleton in a coffin lying there, you know who's going to do well and who very likely may die due to the treatment.
Yeah, yeah. So that's so in other
and
words.
I use the word eliminate the illness, so that you're not fighting a war. As Mother Teresa said it well, I will not attend an anti-war rally, but if you ever have a peace rally, call me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help people heal their lives and find peace, not fight a war.
Right.
Because then you empower your enemy.
Right. So you're trying to get them to focus on healing and shift the and let go of the resistance, right? To you know, not to focus on resistance. And so this is sounds like really important clearing work, to do basic work before you go ahead and you know, so that you can the time has gone.
I like to call myself a life coach.
Yes.
Let me coach you. You see, if the talent's in you, I can help you bring it out.
Yeah, yeah. And what an amazing approach to medicine, because it's so compartmentalized for most of us. Right. You know, the time has gone really fast, and you're welcome anytime on this show. I also want to tell you that when I did that interview with you years ago for First for Women, as we were on the phone, a huge wave of warm, healing energy shot through my body while we were talking. And
that's another thing that's coming up, that I've predicted. There's a book, The Energy Cure, and we're beginning again to realize our potential. I was healed of an injury years ago by a healer, Olga Worrell, and that woke me up too. She just put her hands on me that was so hot. And 5 minutes later, I walked away fine. So, see, these are things we have to open up medicine's mind so they don't say, oh, I can't accept that. That's crazy. And explore all these things. The creative universal energy is available to all of us and all living things.
Yes.
Bacteria resist antibiotics. I mean, I could give you a list, of all living creatures know how to survive. But we got a problem because we think too much.
We do. Tell us where we can get in touch with you and get the book.
All right. Bernie Siegel, Siegel, BernieSiegelMD.com. You could order it through that or Amazon or probably Barnes & Noble. But
it's everywhere, right?
Yeah, all my books, CDs. And where it says contact us, it comes to me.
Oh,
good. I deal with people. So if they want to get in touch or ask me a question or draw a picture or whatever, they can get in touch with me through BernieSiegelMD.com.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Siegel. I really appreciate your coming on to the Book Beat tonight.
All right. Bless you.
Our next guest did not like turning 60 at all, and she wondered if other women her age and older felt the same, and so she got this idea to find out. She interviewed 70 women from ages 60 to 90 and asked them what they felt about aging. And we will find out after the break. This is the Book Beat here at LA Talk Live.
Hi, this is Dr. Levi, your fitness doctor, making a personal house call, inviting you to join me Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific for my all-new show, The Dr. Levi Show. Join us as we discuss fitness, health, and well-being, including emotional and spiritual health. So don't forget to tune in to The Dr. Levi Show every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes, Radio R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv, or catch us on the Live 365 network, and now on Radio Flag and Stitcher Radio. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Starlet Quarles, and I'm inviting you to join us every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. for a new show right here on LA Talk Live, The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. Join us as we discuss the topics that are relevant to today's generational leaders. So don't forget to tune in to The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People, every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. right here on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hello, I'm Joel Ramirez.
And I'm Lolita Robinson Coppage, and welcome to Joy in My House
on latalklive.com. Inspirational radio
with a touch of recovery.
A reality show where nothing is left unsaid
and no one is insignificant who says it.
Exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV.
reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, and welcome back to the Book Beat. I'm Jean-Noel Bassior, and I want to mention that bumper music is composed by my brother, Rick Fleischman, who's a musician around town. He has visual music services, and thank you, Rick. Love the bumper music. I see my guest was kind of dancing to it here.
You bet.
Our guest is Sam Dawson. She is author of The Broad Appeal, Wit and Wisdom from Women, ages 60 to 90, and she is a philanthropist, activist, actor, and retired publicist who did not like turning 60, right?
That's true. I didn't.
And you say that your body parts started heading south, and in the down dog yoga pose, I could see the wrinkles around my ankles like the age rings on a tree. That's
Yes.
brutally honest. So curious to learn if others her age felt the same, she interviewed 70 women between the ages of 60 and 90. And this is a book came from that, right?
Yes, it did.
So tell us about, how did you really decide to do this?
Well, it's been a heck of a journey. If I had known when I started what sort of a lark, like, I don't like this, and I was 60 and I thought about it, and then, life went on. And then when I was about 65, I thought, this isn't so bad. Actually, I'm sort of having fun with this. So I wonder how other women feel. And I thought, I'll just send out an email and say, if you're not 60, give it to your mom or a friend or whatever. And very few women wrote back.
Really?
I mean, I found out that women, when they were committing to writing what they felt about it, they started to overthink it. You know how Dr. Siegel said, and we were talking about earlier about how your mind overthinks stuff. Mm-hmm. But as soon as I said, I'll interview you, they came out of the woodwork. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could have done 120 women.
So you interviewed them by phone.
So I did,
right?
And that's the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't interview them face to face because what would happen, we're girls, right? We sit down and we start talking, and we drift off here, and then we drift off there.
Yeah.
But if I kept my questions, on the phone, and I told them, look, I'm going to take an hour of your time. I'm going to write like mad. And as soon as I hang up, I'm going to type it up, and then I'm going to send it to you. And then you fix it any way you want. And 98% of them never fixed anything. A couple of times they said, if you use this, could you make it anonymous? And that was usually around sex. Some of the women were a little uncomfortable.
Well, what did you find about sex? Let's go into that.
That women over 60 are still very interested in sex for the most part. And for the most part, there were a couple of women that went, yay, I'm sort of done. I don't care anymore. But one woman this is one that asked to remain anonymous. She said, she was a widow, and she said, I love sex, so thank God for vibrators.
Yeah.
Yes.
So people were really honest with you, and I know you talk about sometimes they had let go of a first marriage, right, and then embarked on another relationship afterwards.
What I found, I have a chapter in the book called Marriage, Divorce, Men, and What the Hell is Happily Ever After. And what I discovered when I really and who knew? I didn't know what was going to happen. But of the women I interviewed, a huge number of them were still married to their first husband and still happy, which is amazing to me since, I've been through a couple of things. And then the second group was women who were in their second marriage, long-term marriage, maybe 25 years, and very happy. And then there was a third group that sort of grew through divorce, that when they got divorced, they really came into their own. But I think so many of the women that in the book they're really just a little pre-baby boomers. They're more in about 70.
Right.
And that group of women, before the baby boomers, once you're 60, divorce was pretty common now. But in my day, I was the first one on my block to get divorced. I mean, it was just a horrible thing, and your children were,
Right.
ostracized.
Well,
and
those are women who grew up, I think, it came of age in the 1950s, late
That's right.
40s, 50s.
40s, 50s,
Yeah,
and early 60s.
where
yeah.
right before the big change that the baby boomers brought about,
Exactly.
when traditional values were still just like that was the only way to go in America. You know,
Right.
it's just, yeah.
And those women, those women that are still married, they seem to have gone through the war and worked it out and
Yeah.
ended up, with my best friend, actually, she's in my book, and we've been friends for 40-something years. And she has a great statement about being, she's been married now for 52 years, and she goes, sometimes he really pisses me off. but I've worked on this long enough, and I think we love each other enough that it's worked out.
Yeah,
So-
that's amazing. So let's talk about what were some of the positive things they said about aging, and then we'll talk about the negative things, what they liked, what they didn't like.
Well, first of all, let me say that positively, this book shatters the perceptions on what an older woman is. It really does.
How so?
Because, you know that old joke about how the Boy Scout helps the old lady across the street even though she didn't want to go. But the truth is that when you hit sometime over 60, you are freer than at any other time in your life. For the most part, you've raised your kids. You've gotten your career under. You're ready to be you. And the world is open to all new possibilities. I call it the new frontier. You know how John Wayne epitomized riding into the sunset? Well, we women, we're entering a brand new frontier, and it's really positive. We're freer to do anything we want to do, and we've let go of the oughts, coulds, woulds, and shoulds of life.
Actually, I love what you say. You say over the hill is the new frontier.
It is.
I love that.
Yes, that's my phrase. I'm riding like John Wayne.
It's really good.
And over the hill is the new frontier.
Right. So the positive part is there's this new sense of freedom.
Yes.
And probably some of them are wondering, like, well, gosh, why did I spend 59 years thinking that I couldn't be myself? Right.
Right.
So they're discovering a new sense of self.
They do, and actually, I think it's a lot of women start this around 50. They finally. Actually, I have a daughter who's just 50, and she's just coming into this new transition, and she's sort of upset with herself because she's, looking at herself completely differently. Her children are going off to college, and she was sort of upset, and I applauded. I said, congratulations. Congratulations. You're ready to look at really who you are and how you're going to live your life now, and not living it for your career and your kids and your husband, but really for yourself. And the other thing, there's two themes that really run through the book. One is that we learn to dump toxic relationships. Now, why the heck it takes till we're about 60 before we can do that?
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about husbands and wives. I'm talking about girlfriends. Those
people
frenemies,
that-
they call them.
Yeah, and exactly the people that you don't feel good around.
Exactly.
But for some reason, why do
you stick?
Yeah, why do you stick?
That's right.
Yeah.
So they've learned to dump the toxic people, and that's one big theme. And the other theme, of course, now you don't have this problem, but the rest of us do, and that's the damn 10 pounds. I mean, every woman except for the really thin ones, who we pretend we don't like, but we just want to lose 10 pounds, and it just runs through the book. So dumping toxic people and getting rid of 10 pounds, and life is perfect.
Actually, I had an editor when I was freelance for Women's World magazine. My editor wrote a book on exactly that subject. Linda Connor, How to Lose the Last 10 Pounds.
Oh, she did.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, this whole book on that.
Yeah, because you can never lose that last 10.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about, I have an aunt, and she's 93 now, but when she was about 60, I think she said, I look in the mirror, and the person I see is not who I think I am. She said, I feel the same inside. I haven't changed. But
Yeah.
who's that person in the mirror? So how do you deal with that sense of the wrinkles, the thing, that's the part of aging that we don't like,
Oh,
right?
we hate it.
Yeah.
We hate it. There's one woman that's 83 in my book, and she said, I really love being older. I just wish I could do it wrinkle-free.
Yeah.
And that is true. But it's true. You walk by the mirror and you say, who the hell is that old lady? Because
Right, exactly.
It's just
Because
like
inside you feel like you're
you
20,
feel like
right?
you feel the same.
Right,
you
right.
do.
Do you know about Eva Fraser, by the way?
No.
Google her, Eva Fraser, Fraser. She's in her 80s now, but with facial exercises, she never had any plastic surgery, and she looks really, really wonderful. And it's possible at any age, to explore new techniques like that we, haven't heard about. And, there's a lot of different possibilities.
Well, I'm a firm believer in, I have a friend that said, you've only got one face, so you might as well take the best care of it as you can. And so,
Right.
So I was widowed when I was 56 from my second husband, and it was, it was a journey. He'd been sick for a while, and you really get beat up.
Yeah.
And he was gone, and I looked at myself in the mirror and I went, "Oh my God, you've been through the wars," and I didn't have a. It's a long story, and it's in the book. Actually, I was hugely in debt, but I had this $20,000 that I couldn't pay anything off with, and I took it and I went and I got a facelift, and I'm not sorry. Now, it only lasts so long, and as one of my daughters said, well, you look the same. It's just like somebody pulled the sheet tight.
Well, and there's still, there's a lot of things that we can explore that, that generation that we're talking about didn't have some of the techniques, or, they were not big vitamin takers. For example, the baby boomers brought in a sense of, maybe we don't want to age like our parents. Maybe, some baby boomers, not all, question traditional aging, quote, and kind of go in new directions, like, oh, I'll try these facial exercises, or I'll try these vitamins, So
well, let me say something
Yeah.
for the little bit pre-baby boomers.
Yeah.
We are the ones that burned our bras. We're the ones that really made it fine for the baby boomers. We revolutionized that
you
era.
did. You were the
and-
pioneers.
Yes, we are, and we're revolutionizing old age. That's
Yes,
what we're doing.
yes.
We are not rocking chair grannies.
Right.
As I said, if there's any rocking to do, it's on the dance floor or in the bedroom. So.
So tell us about yourself and some of these women. What attitude did you find that some women were taking towards aging? Is it a fierce attitude? Is it
Pretty much,
because Carol Osborne kind of coined that term, fierce with age, I think she calls it.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I think that's a great term.
Yeah.
What I found was most of these women really, as I said, they really loved this age, this time. They didn't like the way they looked, but they liked everything else about it. So, and sexually, they're freer than they've been for a long time. To their amazement, they can do exactly what they want to do. A lot of them, I have a chapter in there, to work or not to work. Is that a question? And the women that were still working, now there were some that absolutely had to. But for the most part, the women that were still working is because they loved what they did. And then the women that are retired are active and vital and doing stuff for the world that they didn't have time to do before. So they're just an amazing bunch of human beings. I'm crazy about these women.
What was the thing that you loved most that you discovered?
Well, the thing is that it made me feel so honored to be sort of in a sisterhood of women that, as I say, are not rocking chair grannies. We've shattered those perceptions. We smashed those stereotypes. I think we look pretty good, and we're alive and active and vital, making a difference in the world. I'm one of the founders of now the nonprofit is going into its 5th year, but when I took me 3.5 years to write this dinky little book, the book is only 147 pages, and it took me 3.5 years. I didn't know what I was doing when I started. So
well, that was a new experience, right?
it was a hell of a new journey. So, and it was. I started it at 68. So what the heck?
Well, and talk about that, because I think one of the things that can help people the most about what you've done is, for example, let's say somebody wanted to go to law school and they're like 70. Well, it's better to do it than not to do it, right? Because when you're
Absolutely.
75, you'll be a lawyer.
That's right.
Whereas otherwise, when you're 75, you won't be a lawyer. you know?
That's exactly
So
right.
that's what I
Yeah.
kind of hear you saying. Did you find that attitude of it's never too late was
Yes.
what drove some of the women?
Yes, I did. And they really, I had one friend who's in the book. Now, and when she was 50, she started something new. She went to work for a community foundation, and in 15 years, she took this tiny little community foundation and, grew it to 4 or 5 times its original size, and she did that in 15 years. But she didn't start till she was 50.
Right,
So
right.
I mean, that's in my head because of my daughter. Saying, I should have started something sooner. I said, oh, honey, you got all the time in the
Right.
world,
My grandmother started a business at the age of 65 and became a nationally famous designer and sold to her. It was called Zoll out of California. And her clothes were in Bloomingdale's, Saks, all over the
Oh,
country.
wow.
And a Russian woman at 65 started this business.
God bless
and
her.
became nationally known as a designer, invented sportswear. The striped jerseys that came in were my grandmother's invention.
No kidding.
Yes. And at 65 now, at the time, now I appreciate, what she did. So there's an example of somebody like never too late.
Exactly. She's
Yeah.
a perfect example.
Yeah,
She could be the poster child for this
Exactly.
book.
What was the oldest woman that you found?
She
that
was
had-
90. The oldest woman
Really?
I interviewed.
And
was
what
90.
what was her story?
Well, she was actually, she just passed away, so she was 94 when she died. But she was still an art consultant. And she said, people always think I'm younger. But if they just took a look at my hands, I think that gives me away. But she was, she was vital. She loved theater. She loved opera. And she was still being hired to do art consulting. So I think if you just keep going and you just keep engaged in life, then you're going to, if you were vital, then the world around you is vital. And if you want to be a couch potato and sit there, then, like Dr. Siegel said, well, you'll curl up and die. But if,
Yeah.
if you've
Yeah.
got a positive attitude, I know that sounds like sort of Mary Poppins or something, but it's true.
Let's talk about that, because let's say someone's watching this and they don't feel as enthusiastic as the women we're talking about. Let's say that they are kind of depressed about getting older, and you can't change overnight, but what would be your best advice, or something maybe that you heard from some of the women you interviewed, to kind of turn that attitude around?
The first thing I would say is volunteer.
Volunteer.
That's what I would say. The moment that you go out and you make a difference for someone else, that's when your whole life changes. I think often women, particularly women, decide to volunteer to help those poor children or those poor homeless people or those poor whatever. They go and they volunteer, and they learn more from those homeless or those kids or those battered women than they think they're giving, but really those people give them so much more. And then you have a sense of how lucky you are and what a great place you are in life and how you can really make a difference. So that's what I would say. Get off the couch and go make a difference in someone else's life. And that's...
That turns around the self-pity. I think a lot of times, too, as women, we may feel, gosh, we've spent all our life, kind of maybe doing things for others or doing things that, kind of overwhelmed with things. And so we're feeling sorry for ourselves. But so the kind of like the last thing you want to do is get out there and volunteer. And so you don't. But
Yeah.
then I think what you're saying is that if you could just get yourself to do that.
Yeah,
it
like
would-
Nike, just do it.
Yeah, yeah,
just do it.
you know.
But honestly, I don't know how to address people, that are just truly depressed and sitting there and saying, "Oh well, my life is over," because those aren't the women that I interviewed. Because
Right.
the women that I interviewed, they were so candid, and once they said, "Sure, I'll talk to you," then you knew you were going to have somebody that was really interested. I had one woman who said, I was a really good mother, but I think my life is over. She was the only one. All her kids were grown. She said, I really don't feel like I have much to offer. Now, that was 4 years ago. And I met her, again, this was through the phone and that kind of thing, through her daughter. And recently her daughter, who's getting her master's in social work, said to me, I said, well, your mother was really down. How is she? She said, oh, she's fine.
Really?
She all of a sudden got a new lease on life. I don't know what she did, but she let go of just being a mother of 6 and really found herself. And she said, oh, she's active in the community now, and she's just doing great. That you just hit her at a really bad time in her life. So,
do you think it was possibly the interview?
Absolutely, of course it was.
Well, but because you took an interest in her,
Yeah.
right, and gave her
a voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe she thought about it. Did you ever feel maybe?
I know it never occurred to me. But I was really, it was hard to put her in the book because everything else had been so positive. But I thought I had to put her in.
You want to, I think,
Yeah.
because as you said earlier, you don't want it to seem like a Pollyanna thing. As a journalist, we learn, that you have to have contrast and conflict.
Right.
And those things are a good thing.
But the other thing is I do have a chapter on health is not a laughing matter. So it's a chapter, health is not a laughing matter. Next chapter, get over it, physical changes are a laughing matter because you can't do much about them.
So is that part of the book? Like you teach, you sort of talk about people laughing about these?
No, but
things
the health stuff. There were surprising number of women who had really serious illnesses, many of them with cancer. And all of the women, obviously I wouldn't have interviewed them if they died, but all of the women had come through it with just a complete change in their life. That it had been a blessing rather than a curse because they'd learned how much to appreciate what they've got and how great life is and how to be grateful every day. And dealing with the cancer and the attitude that they took, which is, this is just an inconvenience and I will get through it and I will, I'll move on. So again, those are the women I got to interview because they were very strong and very courageous. So
that sounds like a wonderful book. Where can people get it?
Well, they can go to their local bookstore and ask, but of course it's on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. But they can go to my website, which is working. That's a nonprofit of mine. It's broadappeal.com. And also, let me just give a plug for Christmas, for Hanukkah. It's a great little stocking stuffer. It's just, it's a perfect thing to give your girlfriend or your mother or your sister or your...
Yeah, it does sound like the perfect...
And for a
gift.
man, I was interviewed by a guy. He said, I read your book and I felt like I was reading the playbook for the other team.
Excellent. So, Sam Dawson, thank you so much for being here with us on the Book Beat.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
I want to sign off with a tribute to my producer, Susan Levin, who passed away 3 days ago. And this show would not exist without Susan. She founded Speaker Services, which will continue. And I always used to say about Susan that she networked the world. She loved to see people make connections. That's what Susan loved most of all. And, when people do pass on, you always think of what have you learned from them. And one of the things that Susan would do was she was really good at just doing it. She would get things done immediately. So, for example, and she would do it so fast that sometimes she wouldn't catch like a typo. So she'd send out, an email to her mailing list and would say like, great new speckling opportunity for everybody instead of speaking opportunity. I'd call her up and I'd say, Susan, we really want to look professional here. I was trying to get her to like read the subject lines. But after a while, I was kind of the perfectionist in our business partnership. So after a while, I started to think about what she was doing. And so she might say to me, hey, we're going to teach this class, and could you write up, a class description? And I would say, like, yeah, let me get that to you, like, tomorrow or the next day. And then, like, an hour later, the phone would ring, and she would say, I just emailed it to you. I did it. So I started to learn from Susan to kind of do it now. And that was one of the biggest gifts that she gave me. She was always impatient, and so she left early for the other side of life. And yesterday night, we were some friends and I and her brothers were going through some of her papers, and we came across this how to write an obituary. She was always trolling the web, and so she found this form that you fill out, how to write an obituary. Now, if she were here, I'd say, Susan, this is kind of like an obituary in a box, but she just did it. She just filled it out, and I'd like to read what she put on it. It was very, just a few lines, and she loved that because it was quick. And she said, Susan Elaine Levin lived a wonderful, joyful life. Born in Reading, Pennsylvania, November 15th, 1944, she was an entrepreneur and contributed to many people's lives through her kindness and big heart. She lived her service. Many blessings. Thank you, Susan. Till next week, this is the Book Beat here at latalklive.com.
You are now tuned into LA Talk Live. We're more than just talk. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned.